What's going on, everybody? This is Steve, Gate City Sports Channel. In just a few minutes, I'm going to bring my guy Tone Deshields in here and give you guys a little snippet of our interview. I think this is an appropriate conversation given the eve of draft night, because we really kind of focus in on a lot of things here, right? We talk about like building around Jalen Hurts, whether this is going to be primarily a defense or an offensive draft. We talk about faith in Nick Sirianni and the scouting department. Like we bring a lot of multiple facets in here, so I'm excited for you guys to kind of see this conversation, y'all. All right, let's get to it. Yeah, so like I was saying, like, people are asking me about, what do I think about the Jalen Hurts situation? Like, can I provide any insight? And it's like, I mean, I can tell you where his current development stands based upon the 4 games he played, but I don't know what in the world this front office is doing. I don't know what it's thinking. I can give personal beliefs of what I think they should do, but
Right.
it's like, I don't know. Like, when I go back and what makes it challenging is that Doug Peterson's not even here anymore. So now I got a new coach that I don't, not only is it a new coach, but it's a coach that his, last stint as an offensive coordinator involved 3 separate quarterbacks that have 3 separate styles of play. So it's like, I don't even know how you would pinpoint and say like, well, this is the type of quarterback they like. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's difficult to say. I look at the situation with Jalen Hurts, and my hope is that they take the approach of, hey, look, man, we're really not in a great position where we're currently sitting in the draft to get a probably one of the better prospects at the quarterback position, and you could draft a guy that might be better than Hurts, but like it seems counterintuitive to roster construction. It just doesn't make sense if you do that.
We have too many holes.
Yeah, exactly. Like to me, you're better suited to try to fix the 21 other starting positions on your football team than to try to, focus in on this one position
Right.
and beat your head over the wall over this one peculiar situation. Because the way I look at it is, even let's say at 12, everyone we're looking at's gone. Let's say that they take, JC Horns off the board. Let's say Patrick Surtain's off the board, right? So nightmare scenario. Kwity Paye ends up going high because he's a defensive end. He's the highest graded one. So those guys normally go higher than people think. Mm-hmm. So let's say those 3 defensive players are gone, which are the 3 guys that you probably most people would think are probably in consideration at 12. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, right? And it's like, okay, like they could go Waddle. They could go Devontae Smith. They could get a weapon for Jalen Hurts. They could try to look at the medicals. I think that Jalen Phillips, if you get a clean bill of health for Jalen Phillips, I mean, that guy had like double-digit sacks and like 30 pressures over like 7 games to end last year. Like Jalen Phillips balled out at the end of the year. Like the dude was ridiculous. If his medicals check out, I think he's worth that pick. You could look at a guy like Caleb Farley. Is Caleb Farley's medical is going to come back okay? Caleb Farley, I think, is probably the highest ceiling of any of the cornerbacks in this draft class.
Interesting, because I'm not. It's Caleb Farley makes me nervous. Health alone, like I'm
2 back surgeries.
Back surgeries, no contact, ACL. It's just he has too much baggage for this organization right now. Like we're coming off one of the most injury riddled seasons that I can remember, and I just can't. I can't bring myself to bet on a guy like that right now. I just can't.
Yeah. So, I was really thinking, and I'm sitting there like, you know what? It takes 2 to trade. Like, you got to have somebody that wants to move up to get either an offensive lineman or a quarterback, or else I don't see how you get out of the 12th pick. But I will say this: if you can move back and add another day 1, day 2 pick to 2022's draft, now what you're looking at is having like, I think it's almost a total of 10 top 100 picks in the next 2 drafts. Like that has interest to me. You know what I mean? Like that has a ton of interest to me. Something like that makes a ton of sense to me if you can't get the right guy. The problem is I don't know that you're going to have a trading partner to get back with. I can't see that happening. Like, I want to believe that could happen, but it's like, I don't think they can get back any further.
I think, I know a lot of people, obviously they were unpleased with us trading from 6 but back to 12, right? But like you said, when you think about the grand scheme of things, when you think about how much this team really needs to fix, it was a smart move for your future.
Hmm.
It was kind of it was a decent move. I would have loved to stay at six. I'm sure everyone would have, right? But
Sure.
I'm not gonna murder them for that move because of what came out of it. Now, what I will say is, with that 12th pick, they have a chance to land one of the top defensive prospects, and Patrick Surtain the second if Dallas passes on them because they're desperate to get Kyle Pitts for some odd reason. Or you can get guy J.C. Horn, Micah Parsons, which this team drafting the linebacker that high. What are the odds? But Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the thing is, like, even with that 12th pick, they have a chance to get a day one starter, in my
Yeah.
opinion. They have a chance to get that. And that's why I'm not so upset because it'd be different if we had like one position that we like. It'd be different if wide receiver was the only position that we needed. It'd be different. Yeah, go get Jamar Chase if he's there at six, or Kyle. It'd be different. But this team has so many glaring deficiencies. You can't get mad at them for trading back and still being capable of still being in a position to get a top guy on defense. Maybe even on offense as well, because this draft is deep in wide receiver. If they go cornerback in the
Yeah.
first round, you can still find a guy like Terrace Marshall Jr. in the second, Elijah Moore in the second, and then maybe if you even wait later for a wide receiver, a guy like Tamorrion Terry. I'm in love with Tamorrion Terry for some reason. That guy his physical makeup, I don't know what it is. I feel like once an NFL program gets their hands on him, they're going to just turn that guy into a freak. It's just this team, yeah, we have a lot of glaring deficiencies, but we're in position to bounce back sooner than anticipated. If we draft well and if we don't reach for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I look at it like this. Like, I'll say it this way. I'll pose the question to you.
Okay.
Do you think this draft, the way they try to build around Jalen Hurts, might be defensively, or do you think they're going to try to go heavy offense?
Now, I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if they go. I wouldn't be surprised if they focus more so on defense rather than offensive draft. I wouldn't be surprised for the simple fact that this offense, as it's currently constructed, even as it was constructed last season, it's extremely untapped. You really don't know what you have in Jalen Reagor. You really don't know what you have. And I'm not comparing Jalen Reagor to the top guys in this draft. I'm not comparing him to Jamar Chase. I'm not comparing him to Devontae Smith. I'm not comparing him to those guys at all. But just thinking
Sure.
about the way the Eagles offense is currently constructed, offensive, when you think about it, top to bottom, from the offensive line all the way down to the running backs, wide receivers, so on and so forth, there's really a lot of untapped potential there. You don't know what Jalen Reagor really is. You don't know really what Quez Watkins is. You really don't know what John Hightower is. Mainly because you allow guys like Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson to jump those guys as far as snaps, excuse me. And then when it comes to the O-line, you think about, we're aging there, but you have guys in the rafters like a Jordan Mailata. You still got Andre Dillard, who in my opinion was still untapped. You still and also was the top ranked passer protector in his draft class at the time. So you
Yeah.
still got a guy like Andre Dillard. You still have Nate Herbig and Jack Driscoll, who played valuable snaps this past season. Valuable.
Yeah.
And I really believe Jack Driscoll and Nate Herbig are potential future starters on this team. I really believe that. Same thing with Jordan Mailata. You can't make a guy like that. He was made in the lab. You can't create a guy like that. You can't find a guy like that moves the
Yeah.
way he moves. And even and then at the running back position, you still got Miles Sanders, who in my opinion has always been underutilized. And also another guy that I feel like hasn't really been given a fair shot to really shine. And I feel like if he was put into any other situation, he would shine, is Adrian Killins. I feel like Adrian Killins has this. It's something about Adrian Killins that tells me if you just use him properly, he can be a dynamic weapon on your offense. You know, I was looking up his UCF footage, and the dude, his speed, his elusiveness is undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Undeniable. So I just think about how Doug Peterson didn't use his roster properly. I look at how we were counterproductive on offense when we weren't running the ball, knowing our quarterback was struggling. You know, I think about the lack of continuity on the offensive line. I think about the fact that, you know, we had injuries all across the board. I think about the fact that Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson were jumping these wide receivers as far as snaps, not allowing those guys to really, you know, get their feet wet in this league. You know, I think about all of those things, and I'm like, I would love to see what we have in those guys and still rebuild our defense entirely through this draft. Because there's a lot of defensive talent in this draft. There's a lot of it. A lot.
Yeah,
Especially the cornerback class is actually deeper than I thought this year. And, you know, I would love to see what we have with Jalen Rager. I would love to see how far Quez Watkins can take it, because Quez Watkins, first time touching the ball, he took it to the house. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you have to see what that can be. And then on top of that, another reason I say that is because some of the top wide receivers that are in the league today, they weren't drafted in the first round. You know,
yes.
you think about a guy like Antonio Brown. What was he, like a 5th round guy, 6th round guy?
Yeah,
You think about Michael Thomas for the Saints, a later round guy. You know what I'm saying? I think Devontae Adams was like a 2nd or 3rd round guy, right?
Yeah,
you know,
he wasn't a first round
guy. But my overall point is, you know, there's a lot of untapped potential on that offense, and then we really don't know what Jalen Hurts can be. He can be, and I know this is high praise, but who knows? He may be Russell Wilson's second coming. No, nobody was high on Russell Wilson when they drafted him. You know, he wasn't supposed to start. It's just, there's a lot of unknowns on offense. Whereas on defense, you know exactly what's there. You know exactly what you don't have. You know, the picture's more clearer on defense as far as what you have and don't have, versus on offense what you have and don't have.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like this: is that as unknown and as easy as it would probably be to upgrade the wide receiver position, I think that the lack of talent is more severe in the cornerback room, especially on the outside. Especially on the outside. I think they could easily bring in internal candidates. Like, you can go get a nickel cornerback out of the undrafted rookie free agent pool, and you'll be fine. A lot of the big name guys were undrafted rookie free agents that are nickelbacks. But I mean, you know, honestly, Avonte Maddox, I think, is perfectly fine as a slot corner. I think he'll be okay. I think that the kid that we signed out of the Big Ten last year, what was his name? He's another Adams. I can't think of his name right now. It's slipping my mind, but
man, what's his name? I think I know who you're talking about. It's escaping me, honestly.
Yeah, it's going over my head right now too. I can't quite get his name on my mind right now, but he's another guy that I think can play. He's been primarily used as a free safety, but he can play down in the box as a nickel. I think that there's easy solutions there as a nickelback, but I think that you got to figure out the outside corners, and I think we need 2 of them, to be honest.
I agree.
You know, I was hoping the Eagles would maybe do something like a TJ Carey or something like that. I guess we can see what they do after the draft. I still think they need a vet out there, besides Slay, because
right.
Corner is a really difficult position to play early in the NFL. The rules are really harsh. The technique has to be flawless. Like, it's difficult to play corner. It really is in the NFL. That's one that like, I really wish that we would have done a little more there. I look at linebacker. I mean, I don't dislike what we have, but I know that we can improve. It's kind of like wide receiver. We got some intriguing guys. I love what I think a lot of people don't give TJ Edwards the credit he deserves. Like, this guy was an undrafted rookie free agent. Not only is he a good run defender, by the way, he's the best run defender on the Eagles, but he had like an 86 grading in man coverage.
I saw that. I saw a video you put up about TJ Edwards. Mm-hmm. And I was like, interesting. That's really interesting.
Right? It's odd. I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, now look, I mean, we can get into some of the nuance of that. Like, well, he's probably picking up running backs and stuff like that out of the backfield. So it's not quite the same as if you're a Sam linebacker and you're picking up the tight end or a slot receiver. But
the problem is Nate Gary had a lot of those guys looking worse than what they did. Nate
Yeah.
Gary had a lot of those guys just looking terrible. He was such a glaring problem on defense. It was hard to really pay attention to guys like T.J. Edwards and Alex Singleton, who came alive with over 100 tackles. Like it was
Yeah.
just you're right. The bottom line is this draft. I feel like we do need to address defense more than offense. I would love to go defense in the first round, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't mind going defense in the first 2 rounds. I really wouldn't. Because, you can always find a gem at wide receiver in the later rounds.
I think that, I've been really thinking, and I think some of it has to do with the value. Like, who's there, who's not there. Because, like, I really ran it through my head. I was like, okay, like, who are the guys that are, like, end of the first round, top of the second round receivers? Like, who are the guys that might persuade the Eagles to do something? It's really Elijah Moore, Terrence Marshall, Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney. If one of those 4 guys slid down to about 37, I'm sure the Eagles would be tempted to make that pick. But past that, there's a lot of value guys that are second, third round talents. De'Ami Brown's a good football player. Josh Palmer's a good football player. I mean, there's good football players past those guys, but I don't think you need to jump after anybody, right? I mean, I think you can wait into the fourth round and pluck a guy like an Austin Watkins. I know, like, oh man, Watkins, but Austin Watkins is one of the most polished route runners in this draft class. He's a guy that most people.
So that video you posted about the route running and guys and how good are they in man coverage? I think you did a ranking or something like that.
Yeah, beating man. Yeah, who are the top? I think it was 13 that were graded above an 80.
Right.
I look at that like Tamarion Terry. I think Tamarion Terry is currently graded to be like a 5th or a 6th round pick. My gut instinct is that someone's going to turn on his 2019 film and he's going in the 3rd or 4th round. That's my gut instinct there.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Palmer's a 2nd, 3rd round guy. Sage Surratt's like a 3rd or a 4th round guy. Depends. I mean, any GM could fall in love and draft a guy higher than we think, right? Amon Ra St. Brown. Nelson Aguilar ×2. He's a slot guy. He's a shifty slot guy, and he's a USC guy. And I know people, they hate the association to other guys, but they're just because they have similar body types, it doesn't make them the same player. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I always hate that when people like they take it, to like. There's a kid out of Stanford, Sini Fehuko, I think is how you say it, something like that. Kid's like 6'2", 6'3", 222 pounds, man. The kid put up like a 4.42 40. He jumped almost 40 inches or something like that. Like, dude, this dude's ridiculous. Like, this guy's he's gonna truck guys. He's gonna be a yak nightmare at the NFL level. If he can learn the nuances of route running and like become like a real like threat in understanding how to set a cornerback up, that guy could be a steal in this draft, to be quite honest. There's Cornell Powell out of Clemson. He's more of their boundary side kind of split end receiver. He's not the fastest guy, but he's a Clemson guy. He's a pretty good route runner. There's Seth Williams, right? I mean, there's just so many of these guys in this draft that like I feel like if you're not in, if you sit there at 12, and you're like, look, we're just not going to draft receiver at 12. We're not going to do Devontae Smith. We're not going to do Jalen Waddle. I know that a certain segment of the fan base will not be happy with that. I'm okay if they take receiver at 12. I can live with it.
Yeah, I'm not going to be angry. That's the thing. Like, they have options. There's a handful of options that if they chose at 12, I wouldn't be angry at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wouldn't because you got to go with value at the end of the day. If you're at 12 and if you're at 12 and Devontae Smith is there, you pick him. I can't get mad.
My gut instinct is that if I had to judge their board without really being in the room and knowing it, I would assume that it probably looks like something along the lines of like Patrick Surtain. Then I imagine they probably have Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn. I don't know what they do with Caleb Farley because of the injury history. That's a tricky one. But Kwity Paye, I think Kwity Paye would be up there pretty high on that board. It's just a question mark of like, what do you do? Like, and that's really the question to me is like, I look at a guy like Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye, I think, is going to be pretty good in the NFL. The problem is, try selling the fan base on the one guy you draft in the top 20 is the one guy that will not play significant snaps more than likely in 2021.
Exactly.
Because for the long-term future, he makes a ton of sense, right? Because Brandon Graham's on a 5th-year option. He may or may not be back. Josh Sweat has the degenerative knee condition. He can only log so many snaps before it becomes a problem, and he's on the last year of his deal. Brandon Graham is over. He's like 33 years old. Fletcher Cox is over 30. Like, when you really break it down, like, yeah, we need defensive line, but it's a hard sell to the fan base because, like, oh yeah, we got this guy. Like, when's he gonna suit up? Wait a minute, he's not even dressing for the game. Like,
that's why we have a lot of problems all over, and we just have to go with best available, best, like, because you can't go wrong, honestly. Like that's why if Howie Roseman screws his draft up, it's like, dude, you don't deserve like that's why I'm telling people, like, I understand people are not high on Howie Roseman right now, but he's drafting for his job right now. He can't afford to drop the ball. He's gonna rely on this new coaching staff and scouts more than ever before. And also I trust this new coaching staff to actually develop guys. I know we haven't gotten the most out of them, but but I know I just have this feeling like the way Nick Sirianni talks about the game, the way the way guys like, Brian Johnson talk about the game, it's like Jonathan Gannon also. I have faith in these guys to develop these guys. They have proof. They have tangible proof that they've developed guys. When you think about Anthony Harris, the new safety we got, his development under Jonathan Gannon, you see, it's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon's response, he was there for that, because he was undrafted. So it's like, you gotta, we're in a unique position as a franchise, and we have a lot of assets, which give us leverage. But at the same time, we have to make the right decisions. We have to execute at the end of the day, because all those assets can mean nothing if you're not executing properly.
Yeah. And that's the tough part is like, like I said, you can look at a Kwity Paye. He makes a ton of sense. It's a position it's a position we normally draft high. But at the same time, honestly, he's going to dress if they draft him at 12. But he's probably your fourth defensive end. That's a tough sell, man. Like, and you got a different coaching staff. I don't know that we're going to rotate defensive ends in and out of the lineup like we used to.
Exactly. That was a different mantra, and again, like, I feel like this year's draft, we have to approach it different than any draft we've ever approached before. I think this is the time to change our habits. This is the time to change our ways. New coaching staff, entirely basically a new roster, with just it's this youth movement. I think it's about time we change our ways in terms of how we draft. And I believe, I'm not going to lie to you, I have a belief that this is going to be one of the more interesting drafts in Eagles history.
Yeah, I think it will too. I just think that it's going to be a change of the guard, just because, like I said, when you break down the options, it just feels like a draft where the draft history is going to change, right? 30-some year draft history. It's been since 1986 and Keith Byers. Since we've deviated from selecting inside the top 16 picks, the top half of the draft, since we've deviated between quarterback, offensive lineman, or defensive lineman. Now, I might be jumping the gun, and I could be wrong. But this just feels like the draft that it's going to get deviated, just given the circumstances. Like, Kwity Paye, I think I wouldn't be unsatisfied with that pick, but it's like, he doesn't help us this year. He helps us in the long term. But it really doesn't add anything to this year. And it's like, it's kind of hard to justify a guy at 12 that really won't have a huge impact, more than likely. Maybe he's just a baller, and they're like, yeah, this kid's playing. But
right. It was the same logic with Andre Dillard. Like, you draft Andre Dillard that high, and then you don't play him. It's like, okay, then what? How is that supposed to help, Wentz at that time? You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand Jason Peters was there, but he's a dinosaur. It's like, You draft a guy that high to be your left tackle, and you ruin his development by throwing him at right tackle, and then it was just a constant mismanagement of the roster. And now's the time to change that. I have faith in this new young coaching staff that they're going to inject this organization. They're going to inject this roster with like this new way of approaching the game.
All right, everybody. I appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. Look, I think it was an interesting conversation. I think we both kind of, there were some areas where we had some agreement, or some areas where we didn't really strongly disagree with each other, but we might have had a slightly different opinion here. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be a really interesting draft, guys, just because this is the first time I felt like on the eve of the draft, I really don't know which way the Eagles are going to go, guys. I mean, I think it's just as possible they draft Devontae Smith or Jalen Williams as it is that they draft J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain. I think it's just as likely that they stick to their true nature of who they are as an organization and what they believe in, and they might draft a freaking Christian Barmore or a Kwity Paye or Jalen Phillips, or I think it's just as possible they trade up to get a guy as it is that they trade back. I think it's just as possible they stay right where they are and they do nothing because nobody's going to want to trade backwards. No one's going to want to trade up with us for us to go backwards. I think all that stuff's in play, guys. So it's going to be an interesting night tomorrow, guys.